want to thank you very much for your keynote, which was super inspiring, and I learned so much from your resources and your talk. And we are ready to transition into a panel session with our guest speakers from different locations. And so what I want to do at this time, Michelle, is bring them on stage. I'm going to bring them on stage here. So this is a very special treat to follow Michelle's, amazing keynote. We have invited a group of CS educators from across the country who have been involved in coaching efforts. And so we wanted to add this on, Michelle, to take advantage of being with you and have a discussion of the different efforts and, just at a high level, give participants an idea of the different efforts that are occurring, while also asking this panel, for some of their experiences and just sharing their thoughts on how coaching in computer science, can really propel the discipline, but also really, be able to support our teachers in the best way possible. So welcome everyone to the stage. And Michelle, I'm just going to let you take it from here.
Perfect. Thanks, Lane. Welcome, everyone. Hey, I just want to start with everyone introducing themselves and just letting everyone know who you are, where you work, maybe how many years you've been in education, and just a little blurb on why coaching is important to you, if you wouldn't mind. So let's start. Let's start with Dawn, and then we'll just kind of go around. So go for it, Dawn.
Good morning, everyone. I see that Joe Kamach is here from Wisconsin. And if you don't know him, it's definitely somebody you should know in computer science education. Hi, Joe. It's good to see your message. And great to see all the rest of you, your faces here on this panel. And Michelle, that was a very inspiring keynote. And I've done 2 years of the coaching workshops with Jim Knight here in Chicago, and those are just life-changing. So thank you for all the work that you do. Just a little bit about me. I'm an instructional coach here in the Chicago Public Schools. I'm a full-time instructional coach. I've been teaching high school computer science for about 30 years now. And I am a facilitator for Exploring Computer Science. And I've been doing that for about 10 years also. And I've been a full-time coach now for 5 years. And was there anything else I'm supposed to say here?
No, that's great. Thank you. Okay, let's see. Brian, do you want to go ahead and tell us who you are and everything?
Yeah, I'd love to. Hello and good morning, everyone. My name is Brian Tworak, or BT. I often go by my initials, and I work for the Computer Science Teachers Association as Director of Education. I've been in education for about 15 years, and coaching is important to me because as a first-year teacher, my principal spent a lot of time coaching me, and that transformed my practice and my career. When I joined, I was the only new teacher by a few years, and I felt a lot of pressure as what I deemed as like the worst teacher at my school, but a strong fire to improve. And I think the coaching was really important to me because of the structures that pushed me to pause and reflect and celebrate both the things that I was doing well, as well as tighten up that cycle of, planning something, doing something, and then thinking about how do I improve it before my next iteration. And so I think that both the affirmation as well as the structure for doing that made me into a far greater teacher. I feel very grateful for that. At CSTA, we developed a coaching toolkit and have a project related for mentoring. And before my job here, I worked for the San Francisco Public Schools, and in that role, started a coaching program in computer science.
Awesome. I always love to hear stories about people being coached by an administrator in a really positive way. So that makes me very happy. Okay, Meg, I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Meg Ray, and I'm with Cornell Tech. I was the founding teacher in residence there, and am now in an advisory capacity, working with them on their coaching card deck and toolkit. And I've been in education for about 22 years, and coaching is really important to me because it's been part of every career that I've had, and I feel it's really powerful. So when I first started off, I was actually a theater director, and I feel like the best directors are coaches, and exemplify everything that we just heard about. And as I moved into social work and then education, I found that relationship, and specifically that coaching relationship, was really powerful throughout all of those things. So that's why it's very important to me.
Love it. Thank you, Meg. Jen.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jen Rosato. I'm the director of the National Center for Computer Science Education. I'm in Minnesota, and I was or am a undergraduate faculty member in the computer science department here. So I've been teaching computer science for over 20 years at that level, but have now been working with K-12 teachers and students for about 10, 12 years. And I think something that resonated for me, Michelle, in your keynote and thinking about coaching and what it means to me is, as an undergrad faculty, there is no coaching around oftentimes. And the small bits of coaching that we might have are often tied to promotion and tenure and that very evaluative sort of nature. And I so appreciated any of the opportunities that I had where I could just have conversations with other faculty or get to observe one another and learn from each other. And so I think that idea of having a safe space to have those conversations and really thinking about being a lifelong learner and improving your teaching practice in order to better serve your students is really, really important. So as we think about computer science, wanting to bring those elements to teachers in that area.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. So I'm going to start a question with Dawn, and then Jen or Meg or whoever wants to also build on that. That would be great. But I'm going to ask you about your specific coaching program. Just kind of highlight for us what's really working well specifically, and then also some things that are still kind of works in progress. What are you continuing to improve upon?
Thanks. Okay. Well, in short, if it's possible, about our coaching program, we have 3 full-time coaches, and right now we're only working with high school teachers, and in the Exploring Computer Science curriculum, as well as with the Advanced Placement Computer Science Principles teachers. And as I said before, we've been trained in the impact cycle, and we use the dialogic model for our interactions, which is a partnership model. And I think what's worked well for us, and is maybe a little unique in our situation, is that because Exploring Computer Science is a required course in high school, all of our teachers start out teaching that course and have gone through the professional development. And part of that professional development, the philosophy of the course, is focused around equity practices, inquiry strategies, and teaching CS concepts. So our a core group of computational practices. And so our teachers and the coaches, we all share a similar language around those things and the goals that we want for our students in the classroom. So that's something that has helped and worked out really well because we have a starting point in terms of shared vision of what we want instruction to look like, or we hope we can get there. Some areas for continued improvement, and this is the first year that we've really been able to connect with other coaching groups in other places. I'm very thankful and grateful for that. Just this group here and having conversations with them, and it makes me realize that the recognition that coaching is vital to computer science education, and an opportunity to learn so much from other people. And some challenges that we have, of course, how to evaluate our program, whether or not we're being effective, are challenges. And of course, we are always trying to improve our skills as coaches, and then increase our capacity to reach as many teachers here as possible. So that's
amazing. And it looks like Brian put some work that you all are doing in Chicago Public Schools in the chat. Thank you, BT. Thank you. Yeah. How about you, Meg? Can you talk a little bit about your coaching program, what's working well, what you're continuing to improve on?
Yeah, I'd love to. So at Cornell Tech, we have what we call the Teacher in Residence program. It's a coaching program for K-8 schools in New York City. And something that we've had a lot of success with is working at a systems level within the school to really transform school culture, to integrate CS as part of that culture. And then I think the other piece that we have a lot of success with is building teacher agency with CS content. And an area that we actually researched and are looking at how to improve is how to integrate additional complex frameworks and pedagogy like universal design for learning, culturally responsive instruction. We are integrating those things into our coaching, but how to do that without, while thinking about the teacher's cognitive load has been something that we've been continually working on. And then the other piece that we're working on right now is kind of codifying what it is that we do so that we can communicate that to other people so that they can pick it up and use it for their own coaching programs. So
deprivatizing the work you're doing so other people can do it. I love it.
Absolutely.
Love it. Jen, how about you?
Sure. So our coaching program is brand new. We just hired our coaches and they're going to go through professional development this summer. But we are thinking about coaching for school districts in areas where they are, not so large and may not have a group of computer science teachers, where they may be the only one in the district, and therefore it's a little bit harder for them to access computer science coaching. So one of the programs that we'll run through the center is to provide remote coaching for advanced placement computer science teachers across the country, no matter what school or district they're in, and whether or not they've got a coach there, somebody who also knows computer science. And then also thinking a little bit more at the local level, our partner Code Savvy is going to work with schools in Minnesota and think about kind of regional geographic areas and how can we maybe do some coaching across some of those school and district boundaries within those regions. So we're excited about this. We're excited about the coaches that we've hired because I think they've got some really strong skill sets that they bring to it. We are thinking though about the academic year and just where teachers are at and the amount of time that they have available and the capacity, emotional capacity to kind of engage in this work. And then I think another challenge point we're also thinking about is how do we keep equity at the center of these coaching conversations throughout the year and really keep that as a focus.
It's a big one. It's a lot to think about. BT, anything from you?
Yeah, I'd like to share from my experience working for the San Francisco Public Schools. on having a CS coaching program there. I think something in that program that I really liked is that we took a multi-tiered system of support approach, which is many, I don't know, I feel like a complex phrase to mean something kind of simple, which is just that teachers received tiered support, so more intense support based on their the needs that they identify. And so some teachers receive coaching and like meetings only once per semester, and some were as intense as like 2 to 3 or more times per month. And so thinking about the capacity of the coaches, we were trying to allocate that to where it would make the most impact. And that was a strength. And I think a challenge is something, Michelle, that you brought up in your keynote, which is around status. I think status is really challenging in computer science because often computer science teachers don't have the content knowledge, and CS coaches generally do have content knowledge. And so that puts them at this like non-level playing field. And that often doesn't exist in other disciplines. Like our district had a math coaching program, and the focus was not content knowledge. It was about practice and other things, but they were much more seen as peers. And there is a difference, at least in my experience, there's been a difference in computer science, and that impacts things. And so you just like have to approach it differently. And that's what I'm still thinking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a challenge for sure. And there are lots of little ways you can kind of equilibrate things, but what it really comes down to is doing a lot of listening and doing a lot of what the guys from cognitive coaching call assumptive questioning. Given what you know about 15-year-olds, how might they, learn this? But yeah, it's definitely a challenge for sure. And I can see how it would be a bigger challenge in the CS world. Thanks for your insight with that.
Adding on slightly, I think that another challenge for novice CS teachers is that they often are overly reliant on a curriculum, which is not a bad thing, but they are often just basing their instructional decisions and planning based on what's kind of prescribed in the curriculum. And so, again, there's like, on the one side is kind of the knowledge of like how that might work in the classroom. And on the other side, it's just uncertainty because they haven't done it before, and so they rely on that. And so it is tricky for teachers who never learn computer science themselves or may have a novice understanding of how CS education works to navigate that together.
Absolutely. Okay, we're going to go back to Jen. And then I'm going to ask you, we know everyone on this panel is really passionate about equity in computer science education. Why do you feel that coaching is a part of that conversation? And then what do you think, talking about the purpose of coaching when it relates to equity and equitable access and all the things equity? So talk to us a little bit about that.
Sure. So, I think one of the motivating things that got me into thinking about coaching as a next step for teachers was we have lots of professional development in computer science that is come to this week of PD during the summer. Maybe we have monthly meetings or quarterly meetings during the academic year, and then maybe you come back the next summer, but pretty much after that first year, you're kind of done with that support. But we know that it is not a 1-year type of thing to become, really fluent and well-versed in teaching a course. And so I think coaching is that opportunity to provide that ongoing professional development and to make it really personalized for the needs of that particular teacher. We all have different strengths and areas where we want to grow. And being able to work with a coach to focus on those areas of growth rather than the kind of one-size-fits-all professional development, I think is really important for us. And then in terms of the purpose and thinking about how it ties back to the equity piece, I like to think of coaches as critical friends. When I'm in the classroom, man, I've got lots of stuff going on in my head, like thinking about these students, thinking about the content, whether or not the tech is working. And I can't, see all that's going on or have time to reflect on all that's going on. So that coach is is that critical friend who's able to take that external point of view and notice things that I may not notice. They bring different perspectives to it. And then during that conversation, hopefully we have that relationship where we have the safe space and we can have that conversation about what's going on, what I may not be noticing, what I may not be understanding, what I'm doing, and where I can make some changes to help improve.
Awesome. Thank you. E.T., do you have anything to say about the idea of equity in computer science education and the role coaching plays there?
Well, I love Jen's use of critical friend as a term. I think that nails it. I often think that coaching adds just some of the supports that enable what teachers could likely do on their own, but gives them kind of the time, affirmation, encouragement, structure to do that. And I think that's what's incredibly beneficial. And so I think one really useful practice in coaching is examining student work or other evidence from the classroom together. And I think that's a really great opportunity to bring a lens of equity and bring different questions. I think a skillful coach asks masterful questions. And the questions about this could expose different lenses to view that student work, could ask about even how did you select those focal students in that work? And I think try to plan what is that progression that the coach wants to see the teacher have in terms of identifying things, being able to view work in their own way. I also think be able to determine and then follow through on a clear focus, and always asking questions about how are you centering equity, and which marginalized groups and strategies are you using. I think being the kind of pestery person in the corner, continue to ask these questions again and again, creates a habitual kind of nature to that work as well.
Love that. Thank you. Meg?
Yeah, I mean, I think especially in CS, when we do have teachers who are new to the content, there's a lot that could be overwhelming going on, right? There's also a lot of, just like there's a lot of emotions around math learning, there's a lot of emotions around using technology and building fluency around that. And so I think having a coach is just really beneficial, particularly in CS, for us to help teachers kind of overcome that and get to a place where we have, especially I'm thinking at the elementary level, right, where teachers are generalists, where it's not just one teacher who's interested in CS that's doing the coaching, but that we can use coaching to get all teachers to a sort of comfort level that they can introduce it to their class. And just that it kind of makes up for all those other lack of supports that BT was talking about. It gives a little bit more, it feeds teachers a little bit more and is edifying.
Love that. Dawn, any thoughts from you about this area?
Sure. So I think about this often, and teaching computer science in high school, especially, we've been trying to get this right for about 50 years, and I think finally we've realized that there are some important instructional strategies that we know are effective in terms of changing whose voices dominate in a computer science classroom. And so I like one of the things that BT said about time and effort to this other point. It's understandable that when teachers reach a roadblock or a challenge, that maybe they abandon some strategies that we know are really effective. Um, along with the idea of a coach providing a teacher with time to reflect, um, and this validation is maybe allowing some patience. And I think that's one thing that is really lacking in schools as well as school districts, is this, systemic or institutional patience. Like I tell my teachers that um,
Brian's internet. Oh, goodness, not Brian. And I think he's off.
Let me see if I can get him back here.
Oh, yes.
Sorry about that. Just, the last thing I was saying, I don't know what you heard, but the thing I tell my teachers are that it might take you 3 years to really feel that you're at a point where you feel confident in these practices, and there are things that you think about routinely, and it's okay. It's okay. So
Yeah, absolutely. It's time, right? We often feel like we don't have time, but we do have time. So we just, yeah, I love what everyone's saying is perfect. We haven't heard much from you. I'm gonna ask you a question, and then anyone can reply and jump in. So we know the importance of building relationships with teachers when it comes to any kind of coaching, whether that's planning kind of coaching or whether that's coaching around instructional strategies, any kind of coaching. So talk to us a little bit about some of the strategies you found really helpful when it comes to implementing coaching for our computer science teachers without feeling like one more thing that we're doing to them, instead of feeling something we're doing them.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I like what you said earlier about, coaching not being a quick fix. I don't think that that's why we do coaching. And I said earlier that I think, coaching really should be an integral part, if not the foundation, for teacher professional development. And I really believe that for computer science teachers. And I should also say, like, learning about coaching transformed me, of course, at a personal level and in my career. And, it's like I learned how to listen, but at the same time, I also learned what it felt like to be valued as a professional educator. And I think that is, sorely missing in our teaching profession. So, our approach is really about removing barriers for CS teachers, and we want to give them like the full space available as much as possible for them to become the best teacher that they want to become. And I mean, I could tell you things like, we literally have to ask administrators, please, schedule a planning period just for coaching and planning. During this time, teachers should not be covering, other duty, lunch duty, and things of that nature, right? So, we try to remove all of those barriers. But in order for us to be able to do that, the number one thing that we do is we spend lots and lots and lots of time building trusting relationships. In order for us to be able to do the best work that we can, we have to have their trust. The administrators need to trust us. The counselors, the curriculum coordinators need to trust us. And most importantly, the teachers need to trust us. And so, we have Constellations Fellows. Terry and Sababu are our Constellations Fellows. They are research associates. They are also instructional coaches. And they've spent a lot of time in schools, getting to know the schools, the school culture, and really, building that trust. Because often educators view coaching as just another program that's here today and gone tomorrow, and like many other programs. And so they just really need to know that that's not what this is about. And I'll also say that having that trust integrated in our, coaching approach, it's through that trust that we've been able to address equity issues. Honestly, because you create that safe space in a developmental way. It doesn't happen overnight. It is very respectful, and it's also in a way that we elevate teachers as the true professionals that they are. So, we get to ask some of the hard questions, about why are girls not participating in computer science, and we do that again in this safe space, having built that trust. I mentioned earlier, it was through like analysis of student work and other conversations as well, where, we begin to feel like it is important for us to talk about why Hispanic students aren't succeeding in computer science. And, what about our Native American students? What are, our Black students? And so, we build that trust in that safe space. And the last thing I'll say is that I think it's really important also for us to learn from teachers. So when we say, coaching for teachers and with teachers, we're also learning as well from teachers. And it's on us to build, a professional development model that works for them. So we personalize those PD experiences, and we learn from them. And then we've also learned how to customize those approaches because we learn from teachers. So the foundation of trust is like super, super important. We can't do this work without it.
Absolutely. Trust is vulnerability. Like that's his whole thing. And so when you're talking about those relationships built in order for people to feel safe, that's when you can have those harder conversations because you've built that relationship. So thank you, Lean. Anyone else want to talk a little bit about how those relationships are built? Strategy, what that's been like for you.
I can make a brief comment about a strategy that we've found that works to start to build partnership. And actually, I've been thinking about BT's comment about status and realizing that maybe I need to rethink about when I introduce myself to my teachers in terms of my years of experience and things like so. One of the is that
Don, I'm sorry.
Can you?
There might be some audio. You're breaking up a little bit, but you're back now. Thanks.
Oh, okay. One of the things we discovered through remote, from the pandemic and remote instruction, was that many of our teachers were more willing to meet or interact with us over Google Meet, even when we went back to hybrid instruction. And so that's something we've continued to do. And I think, we've gotten feedback from teachers that it's less stressful for them because the idea of meeting in person is maybe a little bit more formal. And then there, especially at the beginning of the year, there's this totally understandable concern and around prep time. And it's such precious time anyway. And here is this coach who wants to come and take my prep time. But there's less of an investment over remote because it doesn't mean driving there and all those things. So we found that that's been easier to start the coaching process and building trust is through those types of meetings instead of in person.
Love that insight. Jen or BT, anything you want to add to the idea of building classroom relationships for implementing coaching in the CS world?
I'd say in a current project, we focus on developing relationships and like what the partnership looks like. I really like Lynn's point around like the mutual benefit. And I think that it has to be structured around, we both have things to gain, that it's not like I'm here like just serving you, that it's about like both ways. And in a partnership agreement, we have the two teachers or teacher and coach think about what will enable their partnership to be successful. Like, do they have certain needs or certain things they want to say, and get them to think through like, what happens when I get really busy and like miss a meeting or need to cancel it? What happens when like what things am I comfortable with you sharing outside of this space, and what things am I not comfortable with you sharing? And I think talking through some of those like trickier things, or even anticipating some of the challenges that might come, is a really useful way of being clear upfront about how the partners will engage with each other. That is even things about like, will we text or will we, email or other things? And like, how formal do we want this to be? So I think that investing in some time up front to think through what the potential challenges are and later is really useful.
Love that so much. Jen, anything at all you'd like to add?
Yeah, I was just thinking back to the first experience that I had with coaching around computer science education was with education faculty here at the College of St. Scholastica, as they were infusing computational thinking into their courses. And I think that peer relationship, and then coming in as the CS expert, talking about the power piece, and establishing upfront that they're the education expert, and they bring a lot of knowledge to the process. And then just also wanting to, talk through what their comfort level was for teaching this very new content for them, because they went through very small amount of professional development, just a couple hours before they were being asked to teach this. And so giving space if they wanted me to take the lead and them to do the support the first time around, and then being able to reverse that the next time they taught the content, and just kind of, following their comfort level and giving space to their concerns in the process, and not trying to force, the same model or approach on everyone. So, if there are concerns that they're bringing in, I feel like we, as a coach, we have a responsibility to acknowledge those and address the ones that we can, even if they may be like side to the CS conversation.
Love that. Thank you. Okay, it looks like we have about it. So I want to ask one more question and hear from everyone, if possible, about how any data, anecdotal or otherwise, from the coaching that you've been doing. What kind of feedback have you been getting from the teachers, their experiences that might help you improve your coaching program teachers based on what they need and what students might need? So anything at all about any kind of data or anecdotal feedback would be awesome. Meg, let's start with you.
Sure. So due to some IRB restrictions, we primarily gather data from teachers, although we'd like to gather more data from students down the road. But we have great data from our teachers as far as building their confidence, their fluency with content. And anecdotally, one of the things that I've often seen is that our most hesitant teachers are teachers who are maybe critical of the process because they've already had so much put on them, and they're already dealing with way more than they're being paid to deal with, end up being the biggest CS supporters and advocates, and the biggest coaching advocates as well, because they end up feeling very empowered, having a wonderful experience, and then actually often end up becoming leaders in CS in their building. And that's always so rewarding to see. And it strikes me that it's kind of interesting because anecdotally, and I think many of us have seen this as well with students, we see students who often have the most challenges in math or science really just succeed in computer science and grab onto it, and sort of teachers will report seeing this transformation in their students. So I think it's really interesting that CS has this sort of power to really hook in both adults and students who maybe have some kind of extra stress around school, or for students a disengagement, that kind of thing. It's very interesting and really powerful.
Awesome. Thank you. Dawn, how about you?
Well, Meg has suggested to me the most powerful and meaningful data that you can have are some of those anecdotal stories. I think, our department had difficulty trying to quantify and assess and if that's the best way to think about it. But for me, I know that it's best for me, for my teachers, when they tell me at the end of the year that they're eager to teach the class again. And so they start using language where they're beginning to identify as a teacher, not necessarily as a math teacher, as a social study teacher, but they start thinking about being a teacher.
I cannot tell you how happy it makes me to hear at Computer Science Summit everyone talking about the importance of anecdotal data. It is so powerful, and two kinds of data are powerful for completely different reasons. But we love to hear all the anecdotal data because that's kind of the affective stuff that can't get quantified. So, Jen, what about you?
I was going to say, we don't have data yet for our program since it's brand new. And so this is super helpful for me to think about as we're starting to think about how we're going to measure change and what kind of changes we're looking to see as part of the program. So anecdotes and this idea of teacher identity. Are teachers switching from, that I am this kind of teacher to now I'm a computer science teacher? I think that's a really powerful shift, and hoping we can find ways to see that in our teachers as well.
Perfect. BT, anything to add?
It's been interesting running a program during this time of COVID because, teachers are feeling so overwhelmed, and the job gets even harder. And I think a surprising aspect is that coaching feels like just an extra support for like sustainability or like longevity in the field, of like having somebody who kind of gets it, like talk through it. And I think a tricky part has been thinking about like, how do we maintain focus on some like clear goals while kind of balancing the therapy like aspects. Like I think that there's some good that happens and some relationship building that it comes from kind of like the therapy side. But it's also really important not to lose focus of what those goals are, and because it can very easily devolve to just like catching up and not be focused on instructional practice. Something else, like a couple other learnings, are the importance of community. CS teachers are often in isolating roles. They're often the only computer science teachers at their school. So those departments of one are a tricky environment to be in. And so having, even with only one other person, or potentially larger communities, can be really beneficial to, again, kind of feeling both more connected as well as supported. And last, the tension I think a lot about is the balance of structure and like flexibility. Structure in, again, how do we kind of work towards those goals that we've set and this cycle, this approach that we've chosen to work through together, but also acknowledge that like you may have just had something wild happen like in your class or in your life. And like these things are happening in the greater context. Like how do we adapt to that? And I think it feels tricky to find the balance of like how much structure to rely on while just like trusting in the craft of the professionals.
Yeah, great points. Thank you. Lean, anything you would like to add here?
Yeah, I will just very quickly. I don't want to give it all away because I think you're going to hear from the fellows in the next session. But one of the things that has been very apparent in our data is the increase in teacher efficacy, both in their content knowledge. They're lots more comfortable with teaching the curriculum. As a matter of fact, now they want to change the curriculum because they understand it better. And so now they're wanting to pull, sources from other places to improve, in what's happening in the classroom. I think that is a huge, piece of evidence there. We've also seen attitudinal changes in their, perspective on computer science. They're excited to teach CS. I mean, even through COVID, and I'm not saying it wasn't easy because it was super, super hard, but they stayed motivated, knowing that they had the tools to persevere, and knowing that they had a coach that would be there to support them. And then I mean, I think the last thing I'll say is that I think they now have like a bigger, broader, or are developing sort of a broader vision for computer science education, not just in their school, but now they're thinking, hey, what might be happening, in the feeder schools, in the middle school? Are there things that my students can now help motivate other students to get to know what computer science is about? So now they're thinking about like, okay, growing their program. I think all of those are evidence of the impacts of coaching.